Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Bolt Action Basics. I think we're going to call this thing. Today I wanted to kind of move on an extra step and actually start to look at the figures or not specifically the figures, but what we put the figures on. A lot of figures you might have noticed come very flat. In fact, let me just grab a figure. Let's take this World War I figure, British figure for now. You'll notice that he comes on sort of a small base which his feet are cast to. Okay, see if that's better. Yeah, there you go. Okay, now obviously if you put him on the table, he's going to have a tendency to fall over, not because he's been drinking too much, but because he just isn't stable flat. So, if you're new to wargaming, what we as wargamers do is put figures like this onto bases, and there are a variety of different bases that you might use. Now, for bolt action specifically, there's actually no sort of law or rule that says that they must be on this particular size base, or it has to be square, or it has to be circular, or whatever. It's really down to the player, what they want to use, which is great. And so what I want to do today is to cover some of the variety of bases that are available out there on the market, and to give you an understanding and a little bit of knowledge about that. I'll mention a few companies, not picking any in particular, or not favouring any. I like to give a broad spectrum of what's out there, because I think it's important that you know that in this hobby there's a variety of different manufacturers that you could go to get figures, bases, accessories, terrain, you name it, it's out there. And we are very lucky, certainly in today's world, that we have that luxury. Certainly even 20 years ago, from what I hear, there wasn't that sort of selection, and now there are tons of companies out there doing all sorts of wonderful things. So without further ado, let's go cameras down and we'll look at some bases. Okay, guys, I'm going to apologise for the little bit of shadow from the camera, but hopefully it's not too bad, and that shouldn't make too much difference. So let's start off. So there are many different types of shapes, bases. The most common for bolt action is the circular base, and they tend to be bases this sort of size. Let's just take our handy ruler and measure that. That's a 25mm base, and that's pretty standard size base for bolt action. This one is, I think that's either 1 or 2 mils. Yeah, it's about 2 mil width, and it's MDF, it's laser cut. These are relatively cheap to get. You can get them from companies like Warbases, and they're very good. They are good quality, durable, and you can stick your figures straight onto that. Other types of bases you might see are these sort of grey plastic ones. Often they've come with bolt action kits, although Warlord have changed their bases, and they're actually now producing these bases. Now you might say, well, what's the difference? Now, if you notice, there is actually, if I can just show you that, there is just a little bit of a lip around the outside. So you get a little bit of a raised edge there, and that's quite good. Some people really like that. And I will just draw your attention to these sort of sprue marks on the end. Now, when you take them off, the sprues, and you cut them off, you often get these bits of flash left over, or just, a little bit of moulding from the sprue. All you need to do is take a small file and just give that a smooth, just file it off and get that smooth, and you'll be good to go. And it really doesn't take very long. So there's 3 so far, and there's another one here. Green plastic, slightly rougher edge on the top and a bit smoother on the bottom. and again 25mm. And I think Rendera do those green bases, if you specifically want those. But basically, they are plastic round 25mm bases. Now, what I like to use, and possibly the cheapest base I am yet to find, is the good old 2p piece. Okay, it's about 25mm in diameter. It's actually maybe a little bit bigger if I can compare that. Okay, it is a little bit bigger, but not a huge amount bigger. The reason I use 2p pieces, other than the cheapness, is that it's metal. And one of the advantages to metal is if you have a plastic figure, and for whatever reason your figure gets knocked off the table, the idea is, and it to an extent works with metal figures as well, but the weight of the base should make the figure land base down, saving your figure from a lot of damage. And so for that reason I use metal bases. So that's the circular sort of 25mm bases. Quite a variety, and readily available from most of the companies, particularly Warlord and War Bases and Rendera and places like that. Quite easy to pick up. So that's the circular bases. Let's move on to the bigger circular bases, which is possibly the second most common base for bolt action. So here's the larger base. It's circular still. I think this one is 60mm. Yep, 60mm. And these are more than usually used for support teams. Okay, so you might have a machine gun team on there, and you might also have a mortar team, or maybe a flamethrower team, something like that, to put them on. Now, I don't tend to put my teams on there, primarily because if you take a casualty and you have to remove a figure, you can't actually take a figure off if you've stuck them all on there. If you've got 3 figures on there. So what I tend to do is base mine individually. But saying that, they do look quite nice on a 60mm base. You can do a little mini diorama, and that works really well. So that's another War Bases one. Although this one came with, I think this came with my French figures. So this is from Warlord. But they also provide, or Warlord also sell, these 60mm bases with the lips, much like the 25mm base with the lip. This one here. And another one that I just picked up from a game shop. A little bit thicker, this one. It's got a kind of, you can tell it's got an angled edge, so it gives it a little bit more raise off the table. But again, it's just another 60mm base, and again, you know, you can use them if you want to. I will probably be saving these for my command teams, for my Napoleonic figures, where I've got a command team, but I don't need to remove casualties. So that's those bases. Okay, well, we've done 25mm, we've done 60mm. Those are the most common for bolt action. There is one other base that you might see, and that's what we call the pill base. So let's move these ones over here. Give us a bit of space to work with. Move these ones over here. So this is the pill base, and named after its shape. You know, it looks like a pill that you might swallow. Obviously this one's a bit too big to be swallowing, but again, it's 2mm MDF laser cut, and this one was purchased from War Bases. Now this is particularly good if you perhaps have some cyclists, some troops on bicycles, or perhaps some cavalry. They all fit on these quite nicely. I tend to use them for figures with a little bit more to them. So for example, a radio man. In fact, I've got an example just here. Let's take a look at this chap. So this is my French radio man. Is it going to focus? No, it's not. Oh yeah, there we go. But you can see he's got the radio and it sticks out, and he would probably be off a 2p piece. So what I've just done is stuck him on this base to give him a little bit more space, and I might build up a little bit more of a diorama on that with the extra space, or I'll just leave it fairly open. But it's a nice size for a figure like that. Or if I was to have a figure with a mortar, I might put that on there. So that's the pill base. And here's another one. Just pick that up at a game shop, hobby shop. And here's one of the Warlord ones with the lip. And they do vary in size. I like the War Bases one because it's kind of a medium size. It's sort of got the width but also the length. Whereas the Warlord one, it's pretty good. It would fit all the bolt action figures on. Just for me, I don't necessarily like the lip, but that's just user's choice really. So that's your pill bases. On top of that, there are some other bases that you might just like to know about, because you might find some figures that have these. Now, let me just bring over Private Pike from the Dad's Army box set from Warlord. Okay, now all of the Dad's Army figures actually have this tab on the bottom, and if you can see there, it's got his name on. Okay, now I didn't want to chop that off. I quite like that, but I needed a base for this to go in. Now there are several on the market. There is you can get square bases with slots in, and very easily they just slot in like so, and then you have to add some green stuff or some grey stuff to just keep them in place. You can also get bigger circular ones. These come in all various different sizes. Again, the slot, so you could have a little bit bigger base. But the Dad's Army Warlord set actually come with bases, and they have these lovely. Oh, sorry, that was my shadow, and I've just moved the camera. Apologies for that. I'll sack the cameraman later. So the Warlord ones come with these circular ones. I think they're about 25mm, and again, they just slot in like so, and are very nice little figures. Okay, so that's the slot bases. And the last bases that I'm going to very quickly talk to you about is square bases, square and rectangular bases. Now there are lots on the market, and I'm just going to very quickly fly through these, because they're not necessarily for bolt action, but you might decide you quite like them and you want to use some of these. So again, we have the wooden ones. Some of these people might recognize as Flames of War bases or Flames of War base sizes. It's a different game system, but again, there's a variety of different shapes and sizes, and they're all very useful for various different things. It really is about you using your imagination and coming up with a base that works for what you want to do. So maybe you want a little diorama with a sniper in there, or maybe you want a command team on a square base rather than a circular base. It really is up to you. And just a quick shout out for a friend of mine in the UK. He actually makes metal bases, and they're all precision cut. I tend to use these for my 6mm, but we have 30 by 30mm, we have a 30 by 60, and we have a 60 by 60, and they're great for mounting 30 Zulus on. So that's what I quite like. And just finally, you could always just make your own bases, which is a bit revolutionary, I know, but people do it. And I have in fact got an example of a base I made, and this is for my Romans. And hopefully one day when I get around to playing Hail Caesar, I will bring this out to the table. So I've got my main artillery piece, or blister, stuck onto the base. I've got a loose, some shot on a penny base. Got that on the side. And what I did, it's just simple. I think it's either I think it's MDF. I just drilled out some little inserts, just big enough for my 2p piece to fit in, and my character's sitting there quite nicely. No actual rules on what size it has to be, but it works quite nicely and does the job. So there you go, guys. Bases. it's really up to you, basically. If you want to go with a particular base, go for it. Because at the end of the day, it's your army, and you can kind of pretty much do what you like with them. Apart from that, there's not much more to say. So let's go back to the chair, and I'll let you know what's coming up next week. Okay guys, so that was the wonderful world of bases. Hopefully that's been really informative, and that's given you a lot to think about, and particularly if you're new, hopefully that's given you a good guide as to what you could use for your armies, and hopefully it won't be long before you're putting armies out onto the table. So, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please, like the video, subscribe. Feel free to put any comments down. Always good to see questions from you guys, and I'm more than happy to answer them in future episodes. So, I think next week we'll probably bring out a bit of a painting tutorial, get you guys start to think about paints that you could use. And I'm going to be painting up some British Expeditionary Force figures from 1939, 1940, which should be a lot of fun. So check that out, and check out all the other videos on the channel, and we'll see you next week. Okay, take care.